I've really got them reading. I mean, properly reading. They are bookworms now. It's so lovely. If I go and see them, I find them tucked up in bed, with a book and saying, please don't turn off the light. I've got to finish this chapter.
A single DNA test just destroyed Queen Camilla's family forever. Her daughter Laura opened an envelope expecting routine health results. What she found instead has left the palace in absolute panic mode. She hasn't spoken to her mother in months. She's cut all contact with the royals. And the timeline she discovered points to something nobody saw coming. King Charles might be her real father. Royal insiders are calling it a Category 1 crisis. Legal teams are scrambling. And what Laura found when she dug into her mother's past will make your jaw drop. This changes everything we thought we knew.
Putting our efforts as a charity into leveraging the unique power of books to help rebuild lives, and are committed to taking them into places where they are so badly needed and often so sadly absent.
According to multiple sources familiar with the situation, the chain of events began innocuously enough earlier this year when Laura underwent what was meant to be routine medical screening. At 46 years old and working as an art curator in Wiltshire, she had been experiencing some health concerns that her physician recommended investigating thoroughly. The genetic testing that followed was primarily designed to identify any hereditary health risks, particularly certain cancers that can run in families. It was, by all accounts, a precautionary measure that thousands of people undertake every year without incident. What happened next, however, was anything but routine. Along with her standard health results, Laura reportedly received an additional analysis that flagged something the laboratory considered unusual. The genetic markers in her DNA showed significant inconsistencies that could not be reconciled with her presumed family background. More specifically, the results indicated that Andrew Parker Bowles, the man she had called father throughout her entire life, could not possibly be her biological parent. The way this information was delivered made the situation even more jarring. Sources suggest that the genetic inconsistency was initially presented as a potential laboratory error, with the medical facility recommending that Laura provide new samples to resolve what they termed a technical anomaly. There was apparently no recognition in that initial communication that this finding represented something far more significant than a simple mix-up of test tubes. For Laura, the clinical and impersonal nature of the discovery only added to the shock of what she was learning about herself. Understandably shaken by the results, Laura reportedly sought confirmation through an entirely different testing facility, taking great care to ensure absolute confidentiality this time around. The secondary results only reinforced what the first test had shown. The DNA evidence was clear and consistent. Andrew Parker Bowles was not her biological father, despite her having been raised as his daughter alongside her brother Tom. This revelation apparently prompted Laura to examine something she had never previously questioned: the timeline of her mother's relationships and personal life in the period immediately before her birth. What she discovered during this investigation has reportedly left her deeply troubled. Laura was born in January 1978, which means her conception would have occurred sometime in the spring of 1977. When she began looking carefully at this period, certain uncomfortable overlaps became difficult to ignore. Royal biographers and historians have long documented that the relationship between the then Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles had begun during this exact time frame, even though both were married to other people at the time. While their affair has been publicly acknowledged for years now, particularly following their eventual marriage, the possibility that it might have resulted in a pregnancy has never been part of the official narrative. The timing that Laura uncovered in her research aligned almost perfectly with what historical accounts have identified as the early phase of Charles and Camilla's relationship. Armed with this information and the DNA test results, Laura reportedly confronted her mother directly. The meeting took place at one of Camilla's private residences, away from the public eye and the usual palace staff. According to sources who were present at the location that day, the encounter was emotionally charged and ended badly. Security personnel noted Laura leaving the property in visible distress, tears streaming down her face as she departed. In the aftermath, Camilla cancelled all of her scheduled appointments for the following 3 days, citing only an unspecified personal matter as the reason. Since that confrontation, the communication breakdown appears to have been total. Laura has allegedly refused all attempts at contact from both her mother and various members of the royal household who have tried to act as intermediaries. Letters and messages have been returned unopened. Phone calls have gone unanswered. Even those closest to Laura within royal circles have found themselves unable to reach her. The response from Buckingham Palace, while officially silent, has reportedly been one of serious concern behind closed doors. What might ordinarily be treated as a private family matter has apparently been designated as something far more significant within the highest levels of the royal establishment. Sources with knowledge of palace operations suggest that special advisors have been brought in to assess the potential implications, which extend well beyond the personal relationships involved. The concern seems to centre on several interconnected issues. First, there is the matter of the timeline itself. The official narrative regarding King Charles and Camilla's relationship has been carefully managed over many years. While their affair during his marriage to Princess Diana has long been acknowledged, the established version of events has always maintained that there were periods when the relationship was discontinued, particularly during the early years of his first marriage. If evidence were to emerge suggesting not only that the relationship continued uninterrupted during this period, but that it produced a child, it would fundamentally undermine decades of careful reputation management. Within days of Laura's confrontation with her mother, unusual security measures were reportedly implemented. Sources familiar with royal contingency planning noted the activation of specific monitoring systems, typically reserved for situations where sensitive information might be at risk of entering public circulation. Most notably, legal representatives with connections to the royal household allegedly approached the private healthcare facility that had conducted Laura's initial genetic testing. The stated purpose was to ensure that all copies of her genetic information were being properly secured according to standard patient confidentiality protocols, though the seniority of the individuals involved and the urgency of their inquiries suggested a higher level of concern than routine privacy compliance would typically warrant. Palace. Officials have apparently prepared multiple versions of potential public statements, each designed to address different scenarios depending on how the situation develops. These range from flat denials to carefully worded acknowledgements that neither confirm nor deny the central allegations. Crisis management teams that are normally only assembled for major royal scandals have been placed on standby, with detailed communication strategies developed for various possible disclosure scenarios. What makes this situation particularly delicate from an institutional perspective is how it connects to narratives that have surrounded the relationship between Charles, Camilla, and Diana for decades. Questions about deception, infidelity, and institutional integrity have long been part of public discourse regarding this triangle. Any confirmation that there was a child born from the affair during the period when both Charles and Camilla were married to others would inevitably reignite all of these discussions with renewed intensity. King Charles himself has reportedly taken a direct and personal interest in how this situation is being managed, which is unusual. Typically, contingency planning of this nature is handled entirely by staff, with the monarch only being briefed when absolutely necessary. According to those familiar with the discussions, his primary concern appears to be protecting Camilla from what would inevitably be an intense media response if any of this information becomes public. Sources suggest he is acutely aware that regardless of their shared responsibility for the circumstances, she would likely bear the brunt of public criticism and scrutiny. The complications surrounding Queen Camilla's family have apparently extended beyond her daughter's discovery to include her son as well, though under markedly different circumstances. Tom Parker Bowles, who has built a successful career as a food critic and author, has reportedly found himself at the center of his own DNA revelation, one that has allegedly led to a complete breakdown in his relationship with his mother. According to sources close to the family, Tom's journey into unexpected territory began with what seemed like a harmless and increasingly common activity. Like millions of people around the world, he decided to take one of the widely available ancestry DNA tests that have become popular in recent years. These commercial genetic testing kits promise to reveal ethnic backgrounds, connect users with distant relatives, and provide insights into family heritage. For most people, the results are interesting, but not life-changing. For Tom, the outcome was apparently anything but ordinary. The initial reports suggest that Tom was genuinely enthusiastic about exploring his family history through genetic testing. He had mentioned in a television appearance just weeks before the results arrived that he was fascinated by genealogy and felt confident about his understanding of where his family came from. He spoke with evident pride about his heritage on both sides of his family tree, displaying the kind of comfortable certainty that comes from never having had reason to question one's origins. When the results came back, however, they reportedly contained information that contradicted everything Tom thought he knew about his maternal lineage. The genetic markers indicated that Major Bruce Shand, the man who had been publicly recognized as Camilla's father throughout her entire life, could not have been her biological parent. The DNA simply did not support that relationship. Instead, the results apparently pointed toward a biological father who was someone else entirely, someone with deep connections to the British aristocracy and, according to some sources, links to the royal family itself. The implications of such a discovery would be profound for anyone, but for the son of the Queen Consort, they carried additional weight. If accurate, these results would mean that the official family history that had been accepted and documented for over 75 years was fundamentally incorrect. It would raise questions about who knew what and when, about how such a significant fact could have remained hidden for so long, and about what other aspects of the carefully constructed royal narrative might not be exactly as presented. Tom reportedly arranged a private meeting with his mother at Clarence House approximately 2 weeks after receiving the test results. According to individuals who were present in the building at the time, what was supposed to be a quiet family discussion quickly escalated into something far more heated. Witnesses described hearing raised voices echoing through corridors that are typically characterized by restrained and measured conversation. The emotional intensity of the exchange was apparently evident even to staff members who were deliberately keeping their distance to provide privacy. The meeting ended with Tom leaving the home, residents in a state of visible agitation. Sources describe him as shaken and upset as he departed, his usual composure completely absent. Since that day, there has reportedly been complete silence between mother and son. No phone calls, no messages, no communication of any kind. For a family that, despite its complications, had generally maintained close relationships, this represents a dramatic and unexpected fracture. One palace insider, speaking on condition of anonymity, characterized the situation in stark terms. This is not being treated as a simple family disagreement or temporary falling out, the source explained. The nature of what has been revealed raises questions that go beyond personal relationships. There are potential constitutional implications when the parentage of someone so close to the monarchy is called into question, particularly when that person's mother now holds the title of Queen Consort. The timing of Tom's disappearance from public life has only fueled speculation about the seriousness of the situation. One day he was maintaining his regular schedule of public appearances, book signings, and media commitments related to his work as a food writer. The next, he had vanished entirely from view. Scheduled events were cancelled without detailed explanation. His social media accounts, previously active, went silent. Even his publisher reported having no comment on his whereabouts or plans. According to sources within Tom's personal circle, he has retreated to a friend's estate in Scotland, far from the London media environment and the royal spotlight. This was not a planned holiday or a scheduled break from work. Instead, it appears to have been an urgent need to remove himself from a situation that had become overwhelming. The source described Tom as feeling blindsided by the discovery and unprepared for the identity crisis it triggered. The DNA results, the confrontation with his mother, and the wider implications for the royal family had apparently become too much to process while remaining in the public eye. There has been speculation about Tom's next moves. Some sources suggest he has consulted with lawyers about the possibility of legally changing his surname, a dramatic step that would represent a formal severing of ties with the Parker Bowles identity he has carried throughout his life. Others claim he is considering writing a detailed memoir that would address these revelations directly, potentially offering an account that would make other recent royals tell-all books seem restrained by comparison. What remains clear from all accounts is that the relationship between Tom and Camilla has been severely damaged, possibly beyond repair. For a man who had built much of his public identity around his family connections and had generally maintained a positive relationship with his mother, despite the complexities of her position within the royal family, this represents a fundamental shift. The public reaction, as news of the family rift began to circulate through social media and royal watching communities, has been intense. Various hashtags related to royal DNA scandals and Camilla's secrets began trending almost immediately. The digital conversation has been a mixture of shock, speculation, and debate about privacy versus public interest when it comes to royal family matters. Some commenters have expressed sympathy for Tom's position, arguing that discovering your entire understanding of your family history is built on incorrect information would be traumatic for anyone. Others have focused on the institutional questions, asking what this revelation might mean for the monarchy's credibility and whether there are other significant facts about royal lineage that have been kept hidden from public knowledge. Royal commentators and historians have added their voices to the discussion, many of them noting that this situation represents something unprecedented in modern royal history. While there have certainly been questions and controversies about royal parentage in the past, the involvement of contemporary DNA testing adds a level of scientific certainty that earlier generations did not have access to. It is one thing to have rumours and speculation, one royal expert noted. It is quite another to have genetic evidence that definitively contradicts the official record. The palace public relations teams are reportedly working around the clock to manage the situation and prevent it from escalating further. Crisis management protocols that are typically reserved for major royal scandals have been activated. Teams are monitoring media coverage, social media discussions, and any signs that additional information might be about to enter the public domain. The challenge they face is managing a story that involves private family matters but carries potential public and constitutional significance. King Charles himself has apparently attempted to play a mediating role between his wife and Hernandez, her son. Sources suggest he recognizes the gravity of the situation and understands that allowing this family fracture to continue unchecked could have consequences that extend beyond the immediate relationships involved. However, with DNA evidence at the center of the dispute, the possibility of reconciliation may be limited. Scientific facts are difficult to argue with or explain away, and the emotional impact of such a discovery does not simply fade with time. The question that continues to dominate conversations in royal circles and among observers of the monarchy is what comes next for Tom Parker Bowles and whether the damage to his relationship with his mother can ever be repaired. Those close to the situation suggest that Tom is currently in a period of deep reflection, trying to process not just the DNA results themselves, but what they mean for his understanding of his own identity and place in the world. Friends of Tom have indicated that he is working with professional genealogists to trace this newly discovered biological lineage. The goal appears to be understanding exactly who he is in terms of his genetic heritage, rather than relying on the family history he had always been told. This investigation is reportedly uncovering connections to other prominent British families that Tom had no previous awareness of, adding layers of complexity to an already complicated situation. One source close to Tom's inner circle suggested that this is not merely about satisfying curiosity. For someone who has spent their entire life with a certain understanding of where they come from, discovering that the foundation of that understanding is incorrect creates a genuine identity crisis. It is about rebuilding a sense of self based on accurate information rather than a narrative that, however well-intentioned it may have been, turns out to have been fundamentally flawed. The potential for Tom to speak publicly about his experience has become a topic of intense speculation. Several sources have suggested that he has been approached by publishers interested in a memoir that would detail his discovery and its aftermath. Given the public appetite for insider accounts of royal family dynamics, particularly following other recent high-profile books, such a project would undoubtedly attract significant attention and financial offers. There has also been speculation about the possibility of television interviews or documentary participation. Tom has always been comfortable in front of cameras due to his work in food media, and he possesses the communication skills to articulate his experience effectively. Whether he chooses to use those skills to tell this particular story publicly remains to be seen, but the option is certainly available to him. Some royal experts believe that Tom breaking his silence could force a broader reckoning within the royal family about transparency and truth. For decades, the monarchy has operated on the principle that certain private matters remain private, regardless of their potential public interest. DNA evidence that contradicts official family histories challenges that principle in ways that are difficult to navigate. If Tom were to present scientific proof that Camilla's parentage is not what has always been claimed, it would be nearly impossible for the palace to simply dismiss or ignore. The ripple effects of these revelations extend beyond just Tom and Camilla's relationship. Other members of the aristocracy and upper-class British families are reportedly re-examining their own family histories with fresh skepticism. The realization that even the most carefully documented and publicly known family trees can contain significant errors has prompted some to conduct their own DNA testing, sometimes with surprising results. Genealogy experts have reported a notable increase in inquiries from individuals who believe they might be connected to the newly revealed branch of Camilla's biological family tree. The question of who her actual biological father was, if not Major Bruce Shand, has sparked considerable detective work among amateur and professional genealogists alike. Some are poring over historical photographs, looking for physical resemblances that might have been overlooked or dismissed in the past. Others are examining old society columns, event attendance records, and other documentary evidence that might provide clues about relationships and connections that were kept discreet at the time. The historical context surrounding these discoveries has also drawn renewed attention. The period in which Camilla was born, the late 1940s, was a time when certain aspects of aristocratic life were kept deliberately private. Extramarital relationships, while not uncommon in those circles, were typically handled with utmost discretion. The possibility that Camilla's mother may have had a relationship with someone other than her husband would not have been unprecedented for that era and social class, but it would certainly have been something to be concealed rather than acknowledged. Royal historians have begun revisiting their understanding of Camilla's early life and background with this new information in mind. Some have noted that there were always aspects of the official narrative that seemed slightly inconsistent or incomplete, though these were typically attributed to the general privacy that upper-class families maintained about personal matters. Now, those small inconsistencies are being re-examined as potential evidence of a larger truth that was being carefully managed. The question of why Camilla was so determined to marry into the royal family, despite numerous obstacles, has also taken on new dimensions in light of these DNA revelations. Some commentators have suggested that if her biological father was indeed connected to the royal family or the highest levels of British aristocracy, she may have felt a sense of entitlement to a position within those circles that went beyond simple romantic attachment to Prince Charles. This interpretation remains speculative, but it has gained traction among those trying to understand the full picture. For King Charles, the situation presents multiple challenges that go beyond his role as mediator between his wife and her son. As monarch, he has a responsibility to maintain public confidence in the institution he represents. Revelations about hidden parentage and decades of maintained fictions, even if they occurred before his reign, still reflect on the monarchy's relationship with truth and transparency. Coming as they do after other recent challenges to the royal family's reputation, including the departure of Harry and Meghan and ongoing questions about Prince Andrew, these DNA revelations represent yet another crisis that requires careful navigation. Palace insiders suggest that Charles is particularly concerned about the impact on Camilla, who spent years rehabilitating her public image, following the extremely negative perception of her during and after his marriage to Diana. She worked hard to move from being seen as the other woman who destroyed a fairy tale marriage to being accepted as the king's partner and eventually queen consort. The suggestion that there are fundamental deceptions in her own background threatens to undo some of that carefully rebuilt reputation. The constitutional questions, while perhaps less immediate than the personal and reputational ones, are nonetheless significant. The British monarchy is fundamentally built on principles of lineage and heredity. When questions arise about the accuracy of that lineage, even in the case of someone who is not directly in the line of succession, it creates uncomfortable precedents. If DNA testing can reveal that one set of family relationships was not as officially recorded, what prevents similar questions being raised about other members of the royal family? Some constitutional experts have downplayed these concerns, noting that Camilla herself is not in the line of succession and that questions about her parentage do not affect the legal succession to the throne. Others argue that the issue is less about legal technicalities and more about public trust. If the royal family has maintained an incorrect narrative about something as fundamental as parentage, what else might the official story be concealing or misrepresenting? The broader question of family secrets and their eventual disclosure has resonated with many people beyond just those interested in royal affairs. The advent of commercial DNA testing has led to countless discoveries of previously unknown biological relationships, surprise half-siblings, and parentage revelations across all levels of society. What makes the royal situation unique is the public nature of the family and the institutional implications of the discoveries, but the emotional impact of learning that your family history is not what you believed is. Universally relatable. Mental health professionals who specialize in family dynamics and identity issues have noted that discoveries of this nature can be profoundly destabilizing, regardless of one's social status or public profile. The sense of betrayal, the questioning of other relationships and memories, and the challenge of reconstructing one's self-understanding are all common responses. For Tom, processing these feelings while also being aware that his situation may eventually become public knowledge adds additional pressure to an already difficult emotional journey. The revelations surrounding Camilla's family have sent shockwaves through royal circles, but they pale in comparison to the bombshell that has allegedly emerged regarding Prince Harry. According to sources that have begun circulating in recent weeks, the Duke of Sussex has reportedly received DNA test results that fundamentally challenge everything he has believed about his identity and his connection to one of the most famous women in modern history. The claims suggest that Harry discovered, through genetic testing conducted at a highly respected Swiss medical facility known for its discretion, that while King Charles is indeed his biological father, Princess Diana was not his biological mother. If true, this revelation would represent perhaps the most significant disclosure about the royal family in generations, fundamentally altering the public's understanding of one of its most beloved figures, and the son who has spent decades championing her legacy. Sources claim that Harry's journey toward this discovery began during the research and writing process for his memoir. As he sorted through old photographs and documents, attempting to piece together memories and verify timelines for his book, he reportedly began noticing inconsistencies that troubled him. What started as minor questions about specific dates or events allegedly evolved into a broader investigation that ultimately led him to seek scientific confirmation of his biological origins. The decision to pursue DNA testing would not have been made lightly. For someone who has built so much of his public identity around being Diana's son, who has spoken repeatedly about honoring her memory and continuing her charitable work, the very act of questioning that biological connection would require confronting deeply uncomfortable possibilities. Yet according to those familiar with the situation, Harry felt compelled to seek the truth, regardless of what it might reveal. The results, conducted with the highest levels of security and confidentiality, reportedly confirmed his concerns. The genetic evidence showed conclusively that while his paternal lineage traced directly to King Charles, his maternal DNA did not match that of Diana Spencer. The woman who raised him, who was photographed with him countless times, who famously sought to give him as normal a childhood as possible within the constraints of royal life, was not, according to these claims, his birth mother. The implications of such a discovery are staggering on multiple levels. From a personal perspective, it would mean that Harry's entire sense of self, so much of which has been rooted in being Diana's son, would require complete reconstruction. Every memory of his mother, every assumption about inherited traits and characteristics, every statement he has made about following in her footsteps would need to be reconsidered through this new lens. The public dimension is equally profound. Diana's relationship with both of her sons was extensively documented and formed a central part of her public image. The photographs of her with young William and Harry, her advocacy for their emotional well-being, her determination to expose them to normal experiences outside palace walls. All of these moments have become iconic representations of her approach to motherhood and her challenge to traditional royal protocols. If Harry was not biologically her child, every one of these images and narratives takes on an entirely different meaning. Royal commentators attempting to process these allegations have pointed out that such an arrangement, if it existed, would have required planning and secrecy on an almost incomprehensible scale. Diana's pregnancy with Harry was publicly documented. She was photographed throughout the term. The birth was officially announced. Medical professionals would have been involved. Palace staff would have had knowledge. The number of people who would need to maintain absolute silence about such a deception would be substantial. Yet history shows that the royal family has managed to keep significant secrets when deemed necessary. The level of control exercised over information, particularly in the early 1980s before the current era of digital media and instant communication, was considerable. If there was sufficient motivation to maintain a fiction about Harry's maternity, the resources and authority to do so were certainly available to the institution. The question that naturally arises is why such an arrangement would have been necessary or desired. Speculation has inevitably turned to the state of Charles and Diana's marriage during the period when Harry would have been conceived. Their relationship was already troubled by that point, with both parties reportedly engaging in extramarital relationships. If Diana was unable or unwilling to have another child, or if there were other circumstances that made it impossible for her to be Harry's biological mother, perhaps an alternative arrangement was orchestrated. The identity of Harry's actual biological mother, if these claims are accurate, remains the subject of intense speculation, but no confirmed information. Palace sources have maintained absolute silence on the matter, which some interpret as neither confirming nor denying the allegations. The women in Charles's life during the early 1980s have been the subject of renewed scrutiny and analysis, though no definitive conclusions have emerged publicly. For Prince William, these allegations create an extraordinarily complex situation. The bond between the brothers, forged through shared grief over their mother's death and years of growing up in the public eye together, has already been strained in recent years. If Harry is indeed not his full biological brother, it adds another dimension to an already fractured relationship. According to sources, William has been devastated by the claims, but remains determined to manage both the personal impact and the institutional implications. The reaction from Harry himself, if the reports are accurate, has been to sever remaining ties with the royal family. Sources claim he has instructed legal representatives to begin the process of formally renouncing any titles, positions, or privileges associated with the Windsor dynasty. The characterization provided by those allegedly close to the situation is of someone who feels that his entire life has been built on a foundation of calculated deception and who wants nothing further to do with the institution responsible for maintaining that deception. For Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, this revelation would represent yet another chapter in her complicated relationship with the British royal family. Sources suggest she has been supportive of Harry throughout the process of discovery and its aftermath, drawing on her own experiences of family complexity to provide perspective. The impact on their children, Archie and Lilibet, is also significant. They would be growing up with an entirely different understanding of their paternal heritage than what had previously been assumed. The public reaction to these allegations has been predictably intense and divided. For many, the idea that Diana would have participated in raising a child not biologically her own, or that such a massive deception could have been maintained, seems implausible. Her memory remains sacred to millions of people around the world, and suggestions that complicate or challenge the established narrative of her life are often met with resistance and skepticism. Others point to the many ways in which the official story of Diana's life and marriage has already been revised over the decades. Information that was once denied or minimized has later been confirmed. Aspects of palace life that seemed unbelievable when first reported have proven to be accurate. In this context, the possibility of another major revelation, however shocking, does not seem entirely outside the realm of possibility. Royal historians have begun the process of re-examining the period around Harry's birth with fresh attention to detail. Contemporary news reports, photographic evidence, official announcements, and other documentary records are being scrutinized for any inconsistencies or clues that might have been overlooked at the time. The challenge is distinguishing between the normal variations and ambiguities that exist in any historical record and evidence of something more deliberate. The psychological impact on Harry, assuming these reports are accurate, cannot be overstated. Identity is fundamental to human well-being, and discovering that one's origin story is fundamentally different from what one has always believed can trigger what psychologists describe as a form of trauma. For someone in Harry's position, who has spoken publicly and extensively about his mother, who has advocated for mental health partly by sharing his own grief journey, this discovery would represent a profound crisis requiring extensive support and processing. The timeline of Diana's life now faces inevitable reinterpretation if any truth exists in these allegations. Her struggles with royal life, her difficult marriage, her public interviews where she discussed feeling isolated and unsupported, all of these take on potential new dimensions when viewed through the possibility that she was raising a child under complicated circumstances that have never been publicly acknowledged. Whether this would add another layer of tragedy to her story or fundamentally change how she is understood depends largely on the specific details of what actually occurred. King Charles finds himself at the center of yet another crisis, this one potentially more damaging than any he has faced. As someone who allegedly knows the truth about Harry's maternity, he faces questions about transparency, honesty, and the lengths to which the institution will go to maintain its preferred narrative. The fact that this is emerging during his reign after decades of waiting to become monarch adds a particular poignancy to the challenge he now confronts.